here we are, brand new week, brand new episode of Star Trek Enterprise,
Exercise? Exercise? I don't know.
Exercise, Jazzercise. It's not even brand new. This episode is like 20 years old.
Right. Yeah, 19 years to the day. Star Trek Enterprise Shadows of Pajem.
I'm excited to talk about this episode.
Me too.
I love seeing the Andorians. But before we get into that, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, it was kind of a rough work week, but I'm always here for the weekend. Had a great stream on Twitch, just doing some Fortnite with some friends, and it was a lot of fun. So I got my little loot llama in the background,
nice.
as well as the little Andorian there. So Andorian pop. So I'm ready for Andorians. I'm ready for Enterprise. How about you?
I'm doing good. I drove out to I don't know if you're familiar with this company or not. I don't know how national they are. Micro Center.
Oh yeah, we've got one here in the Chicagoland area. Yeah.
So I knew of them as like an online store, kind of like Tiger Direct used to be.
Yeah.
I didn't know we have one here in not in LA, but about 40 minutes outside the city. So not
Okay.
not that far of a drive. But Fry's is more or less going out of business. So you go there and
Right.
there's like nothing on the shelves. I've been trying to get I've been wanting to build a new desktop PC.
Nice.
I've been trying to get a 30 series RTX NVIDIA card for
Good luck for
forever.
that.
Yeah. And like it's like with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, it's like, okay, it's in my cart, buy, but nope, out of stock. All right, it's in my cart.
God.
Damn, it's out of stock. And it's just like that never-ending cycle of trying to buy it and it just like going out of stock before I'm able to finalize my cart and actually make the purchase.
Exactly.
So the Micro Center here had a couple of pre-built desktops that actually had 3070s in them. And I think they had one with a 3080. So it was like, I don't want to buy a pre-built unit, but if this is the only way that I'm going to be able to get one of these, then maybe I will. So I drove out with my roommate out to Micro Center, and I took a look around. I ended up not buying one because it wasn't an off-brand. I don't even remember what the brand was now, but it was like an independent PC builder company that I'd never heard of before.
Oh, okay.
That had it, so I didn't want to take the risk right off the bat. So I was like, all right, I'm going to hold off. After doing a little bit more research, Intel has their new 11th gen series of the i7 chips coming out in like 2 or 3 months. So I was like, you know what? I'll hold off. I'll wait.
Yeah.
And I'll see what's going. And now I was talking with you about your lighting a little while ago. I don't know if you can see the color shifting on me.
I do. Yes.
So instead of buying a $2,000 desktop computer, I bought a set of nanoleaf panels.
Oh, okay, cool.
These things are great. I love them. Like Jezzer bought a pair, I think, or a set last year and has been talking about them. So I was like, all right, I'll do it. So I dropped some money on those, and I got an Xbox Series X. I don't know how.
What?
Walmart on Thursday was putting them up like every 10 minutes between noon and 1 my time. And I just kept going through that cycle. And finally, I hit checkout and it went through.
Wow.
I was like, great. I wanted the PS5. I really wanted the PS5 because I've already got an Xbox One, and there's not a whole lot of new games out that I can't play on this that I won't be able to play on that later. But I was like, you know what? It's a next gen console. I'm good. There's a couple of Blu-ray, like UHD Blu-rays coming out in the next few months that I want to buy, which is why I wanted one.
Absolutely.
Because like streaming stuff is fine, but you can still get that like random artifacting. So having the hard copy for something that you really want is always nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just switching to Power Rangers a little bit. Power Ranger fans know this because most of the series are off Netflix now.
Yeah.
And we haven't really had any announcement of any other streaming service. So yeah, like physical media, I've always been a huge proponent of. So yeah, if you have something that you want to get, get it, archive it, have it.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, like a couple of years ago when I moved from my apartment, which I had roommates, but I had like an entire apartment. I moved out of that and started renting a room instead. And when I did that, I lost like all my storage space. I moved everything that I had into a storage unit. So I was like,
Oh my gosh.
I had like maybe 150 to 200 DVDs. I hadn't really upgraded a lot of stuff to Blu-ray yet, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna sell these off. I'll go to like one of those used stores. I'll sell them all off. Eventually, the stuff that I really want a hard copy of, I'll rebuy in UHD or Blu-ray, and everything else I can watch streaming. It's fine. I haven't had any problems with any of that. But earlier or late last year, I saw that Warner Brothers and Legendary are putting out a super special 20th anniversary edition of Lord of the Rings later this year. And I was like, that's something that I'm going to have to have.
Oh, that's perfect.
So I was like, all right, as long as I have my UHD Blu-ray player by then, I'll be happy. Now I got one.
There you go. Awesome.
Yeah. Outside of that, speaking about Netflix, have you seen Ultraman?
I have not. I have not watched a lot of Ultraman stuff, but I know you've been reviewing it. So I'm definitely interested in the Netflix series.
I'm surprised at how good it was. Like I went into it expecting it to be just like a very superficial type series, but it's really good. So I would definitely recommend it.
I'll have to add that to the list.
What about you? What are you watching right now outside of Enterprise?
Yeah, so outside of Enterprise, I don't get to watch a lot of stuff, but my wife Teresa and we've been going through a complete rewatch of The Simpsons, and we're almost done with season 7. And I know like there's a lot of debate like past season 10 or 11, it starts to fall off a little bit. And I know a lot of the later seasons I have not watched. So I'm excited to get to that point. We're also going through a rewatch of, it's actually new for the both of us. We're going through a chronological watch of the entire Star Wars franchise.
Oh, wow. That's right. You started that last month?
Yeah, a couple months ago. But now we're, kind of neck deep in the Clone Wars, which I had never seen. And it's really fantastic. We're also doing a chronological rewatch of the MCU movies. Nice. So. Yeah.
With the Star Wars stuff, I know you said that you're watching everything. So the Clone Wars that you're watching, is it the now canon Clone Wars stuff, or are you watching the Genndy Tartakovsky like old series?
Well, we are watching the like in canon Clone Wars stuff, but the Genndy series, you can't find that anywhere. Like it's
really
pretty much on YouTube. Like they haven't officially like put it out on a streaming service. Like it's kind of like they want to bury that part of it.
That's a shame, because that series was so good like when it came out, because that Samurai Jack, like all that stuff that he was putting out around that time. I saw the first episode of his new thing. I think it's called like Primal or something like that, but I haven't kept up with it. But that's one of those things where it's on my list of things that I'll get to eventually.
Exactly. Well, we've got plenty of time for it. So.
Yeah, for real. So episode 14, officially episode 14, no matter what, no matter where you're watching it, is Shadows of B'Jem, and sees the return of the Andorians and a race that we met this season in Discovery. Yes.
The Cordonites.
So outside of what we saw in this episode, do they appear anywhere else in Star Trek? Like I don't.
Yes, they were actually in the original series episode, Journey to Babel.
Okay.
And they were not seen, only mentioned. And the whole Babel conference was about Cordonite joining the Federation. So even though you never see their species, you see a whole bunch of different other alien species, including the Andorians, as well as Spock's father, Sarek.
Okay.
So that's a very important episode, and it wasn't until Enterprise, this episode that we actually see the Coordinates, full makeup, all of that stuff. And that's why when Discovery happened, when they were on that, mining planet, I was so glad that they had that they kept the makeup the same from Enterprise and just updated it like they're doing with all the Star Trek series. So I love that they came back, and it's kind of like delving more into it in Discovery, which I love.
Yeah. So this episode, it was interesting. Because the Vulcans had their planet in their database, and Archer, as he's prone to do, is just like digging around and like, oh, here's a planet that looks interesting. They're populated. Let's go check them out. And they got pulled into a very precarious situation.
Yes.
They go down to the planet and are immediately kidnapped. And
it's almost like a terrorist group that's like fighting for they're fighting for the rights of to get more resources, and very much a political commentary on like the class divide. And when you view this in the context of when Enterprise was made, this is 2001, 2002. This is shortly after 9/11. And so a lot of these issues were like super relevant and still are.
Yeah, and one of the things that kind of stuck out to me in the beginning of this episode was this whole thing. I mean, they were going to the planet regardless, but the episode started off with us finding out that the Temple Epigem had, or not a temple. What was it? It was a not monastery.
Yes.
The monastery that was Epigem that we had seen earlier in the season that was also being used as a monitoring facility so that they could keep an eye on the Andorians. The Andorians came and just like completely destroyed it. But they gave everyone on the planet notice. It was like, hey, we're gonna tear this building down. We don't know what you guys are doing here. We don't want to kill anyone, but we don't want this here anymore.
And it's interesting because the teaser for this episode started out back on Earth at Starfleet Command, and we got the scene with Admiral Forrest and Ambassador Saval. And, this is one of the many times, we'll see them kind of butting heads over the course of the series. And the Vulcans are like, hey, you know what? We're completely pulling out of our joint operations. And so it's something that you don't see a lot in Star Trek when it comes to this, like, very much like this political struggle back and forth.
Yeah. Well, something that Saval said kind of stuck out to me that kind of sets the stage for a lot throughout the series is that he says to the Admiral that at one time you guys really wanted our guidance, and now it seems that's not the case anymore. And based on what's happening on this planet with the Coordinates, it seems like the Vulcans just want to impose their way of doing things everywhere they go. Like and anyone who's coming up technologically that's going to be going out into the galaxy, they want species to be doing things their way. Not like they don't want them out there like doing whatever they want their own way. They have a very strict way of looking at things and being like, no, this is the proper way to do things, and this is how you should do it. If you don't do things this way, then we're not going to work with you. And so it feels very much like an ego thing, which is one of the things that constantly comes up with the Vulcans is that they're supposed to be logical and surprise, like not have their emotions, but a lot of things that they do, like Archer said, feels like emotional responses to what's happening, even though they claim that it's logic instead.
Yeah, and you see that a lot, especially in Enterprise, but in Star Trek too. There's a Deep Space Nine episode, Take Me Out to the Holosuite.
Oh yeah,
with the whole Vulcan crew, and they were very arrogant and seeming like, they were the ones that were right in that situation. And so, yeah, I mean, the Vulcans, they still have emotions. It's not like they're robotic or
Right.
whatever. They do their best to try to suppress them, but at the end of the day, they still have them. And we see those like cracks that sometimes with Vulcan characters, like you see the cracks in their logic, and some emotions do come through.
Yeah, well, and that's an interesting thing too, because I'm sure you've had this experience that too, where you get into a discussion with someone or an argument with someone about something because in your head the way that you're doing this thing logically makes sense,
Yeah.
and the way someone else is doing it, it just seems completely illogical to you. So you're like, I don't understand why you're doing this. Like, what don't you understand about what I'm trying to explain? This seems really clear, and that's how the Vulcans are, but all the time. It seems like
Mm.
they never come back. It's like again, like when you have those arguments with people, sometimes within my own head, I know I'm like, no, I'm right, you're wrong. That's it. That's it. End of discussion. I don't know how else to do. But every once in a while, I'll be like, nope, I'm an idiot. You're right.
Yeah.
I was wrong. And it feels like they're never willing to admit that.
Yeah. And what I love about Enterprise is that we do see a complete evolution of the Vulcans even in this series, especially in like the fourth season. And it makes you wonder, like, they're so stuck in a way of doing things. It really took someone within their own government to be like, look, we're doing things the wrong way, we're approaching this a different way. And it feels like a political commentary too. It's like, look, we still have this old guard, let's bring in some fresh ideas and stuff. And so the Vulcans now are very much in that, like, hey, we're right and we're doing things, it's our way or the highway. And I think them breaking away from Starfleet and the Earth, United Earth, it it's like it's the start of that journey where the Vulcans realize, look, you're the kids on the leash that we can't control anymore.
Right, right. And something else that stood out to me in this episode, the Vulcan ship that came to help out was the
Yeah.
Navarre, which
Yep.
is what Vulcan came to be called later on, when they merged with the Romulans in Discovery.
Yeah, and that was such a great little Easter egg that they were able to pull into Enterprise. And uh, yeah, it's so great. Like I just love those ties to the past, and that Discovery is able to pull those Easter eggs and make it make sense.
Yeah. So overall, like broad strokes, what did you think of the actual story that we got in this episode? Not necessarily like all the character interactions and all that kind of stuff aside, like the actual like
Mhm.
story.
I thought the story was pretty good. It put T'Pol and Archer in a really tough situation that the crew had to figure out and work out on their own, without that upper command structure. You've got Tucker and Hoshi and all of them trying to work together to find a solution. And we've seen that a lot in episodes that we talked about before. I really like how the crew comes together to solve these problems, and everyone brings their own ideas to it. Um, and of course, I mean, I love the Andorians. I love
Mm-hmm.
Shran, and the whole fact that his relationship with Archer is, I owe you a favor. I can't sleep. This is going to drive me nuts. I need to help the humans. But it was great because, Shran's like, hey, look at you pinkskins getting into this, situation that you don't even know what this is all about.
Yeah. It almost felt like they were taking on the role of the Vulcans in this episode a little bit.
A little
Uh,
bit.
because they were like, okay, well, we have to come to help you because you guys got yourself into a situation that you're not able to get yourself out of on your own.
Mm-hmm.
We've been keeping track of what's going on. We've been monitoring all the communications. We knew what you were up to. And we were working with these guys, but now you kind of got in the way of that. So now we have to help you.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the great moments in this episode was the standoff between, the Vulcans and the Andorians. And, this is an early indication of how much humans are going to come into play as a founding member of the Federation. And you've got Archer kind of being the one in the middle, like, hey, you guys have your own problems, but this is what the situation is, and I need to take care of my first officer. And they were able to handle the whole situation. And, it starts that journey where you can see in later seasons, but also the broad strokes, because, we know from the original series, it's not 100 and something years later until the Cordonites join the Federation.
Right.
So it feels like they're always on the verge of this kind of border struggle.
Do they show up, the coordinates, do they show up again in Enterprise, or is this our only interaction with them?
Oh, I think they do show up kind of in the background.
Okay.
In the later seasons. I know when they're trying to form the United Alliance or whatever before the Federation. I know that there's some Coordinates kind of like in the background. So they do show up, but I don't know if it's as broad of or a specific moment as what we got in this episode.
Yeah, because this episode, it reminded me a little bit, like, as far as the situation that they were in, of the Bell Riots episode of Deep Space Nine,
Right.
When they went back in time. Now it obviously there's a lot of differences, but as far as what was happening on their world felt very similar to what was happening on Earth at that point in time, with certain people, I guess, like Hunger Games type too. Like there were districts, and like there were a lot of people that lived in the well-to-do areas, but everyone else outside of that area was kind of left to fend for themselves. So it's interesting to me that never really got resolved.
Right. And I don't think it needed to be resolved because, Enterprise isn't going to be the one that comes in and saves the day every time.
Right.
And it's not their problem right now. That's a much bigger issue for, ambassadors and politicians and all those other people to solve. All Archer wanted to do was check out this planet. And then when the situation became too much, it was just like, you know what? This opened up a bigger can of worms. We're out.
Yeah, and it's, man. So the scene when Archer and T'Pol were captured, when they're being interrogated by the Coordinate rebel, or whatever you want to call them, and they made him think that T'Pol was the captain.
Yes.
That, like, to me, that was like a really good character moment between both Paul and Archer, because it showed the lengths that she's willing to go to protect him. Because I
Yes.
don't think, if Archer had been given the chance to speak before T'Pol opened her mouth, that he would have been like, no, I'm the captain. This is my thing. If she hadn't cut off his ability to do that, he would have stepped up. So the fact that she was more or less willing to take a bullet for him showed how far their relationship had gone.
Well, she literally took a bullet in this episode, which helped resolve the situation. But you're right. That was really quick thinking on T'Pol's part. And we had that interaction because the Vulcans and humans were splitting their joint operations. T'Pol was essentially going to be recalled and not be on Enterprise anymore. And it shows the growth that, Archer was fighting for her every step of the way. And I think, him bringing her on this mission, that was the attempt to, like, hey, I still want you. I still value your input, and I value your perspective.
Yeah, and what seems to me with that is that, at least as far as Vulcans go, because she was she wasn't a Starfleet officer, she was a Vulcan officer. So what she wanted, to her, seemed like it was irrelevant to the situation. She was being recalled, so she had to go. Whereas Archer, being human, and the way we are, he was like, well, no, I want you to stay. I don't think you actually want to go, so I don't understand why you're not fighting to stay. And it felt very much like she just felt, well, it doesn't matter what I want.
Yeah.
This is what I'm being told to do, so this is what I have to do. Versus at the end, when she was lying in the infirmary, and he was like, well, you can go catch this dude, and you could probably still go if you really want to. And she took that opportunity to use logic to say, well, the doctor said I can't leave, so I gotta stay.
And this sets up another thread that's going to be throughout Enterprise, because this isn't the first time that the Vulcans are going to try to recall T'Pol. And you see her deal with the situation in later seasons. And that's a way for them to show that character progression, that, you know what, she actually fits in with this crew and she grows to like these people. And, as un-Vulcan as it seems, T'Pol has a fascinating journey throughout Enterprise. Aside from Trip, I mean, she's one of my top characters of the show.
Yeah, she's quickly becoming. I mean, really, honestly, like the entire bridge crew in the
I love
the
them all.
Is all great. Like although really with any of the Star Trek series, I don't think that there were any members of the main crew that I didn't really care for. I know Charles has the thing against Neelix. I mean even Kess, I guess, wasn't all that interesting to me in Voyager. But
yeah, I mean, she was okay towards the end, but yeah.
But overall, I don't think there's been any like main cast members where I've been like, I don't really care about this person.
Right. A great character interaction that I loved in this episode was Dr. Phlox's pep talk with T'Pol. Like, hey, yeah, the humans are, going to throw away, do a going away party and all that stuff. But I always loved Phlox's character because, to counteract Mark's, comments about Neelix, Phlox definitely fit that like Neelix type of character.
Yeah,
it was a more evolved form of Neelix. And what I mean by that is, look, I actually love Neelix. Like when I did my Voyager rewatch a couple years ago, I really grew to like his character because he really is the heart of that show, especially in later seasons. And Dr. Phlox very much feels like an extension of that. And I think he's a better version of that type of character. But yeah, Dr. Phlox gives some great advice, and he really is one of the big hearts of this show, of this crew.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that we didn't get a whole lot of Travis in this episode. Like
we don't get a lot of Travis in any episode. Almost.
Yeah, like he's. He like now that I'm really thinking about it, like I don't remember seeing much of him in like the past 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. And what kind of irked me about that in this episode was when Sopek was calling the Enterprise again, and that was after Trip and Reed left for the planet. And technically Travis should have the con at that point, but then Hoshi's like answering the phone call and like essentially taking the message. I'm like, what? Travis is right there. Like he should be the one manning con.
Yeah.
Like being in control. So I thought that was a little off, but I guess since the communication was coming through, you give Hoshi something to do, but still he should be the one going like, hey, I'll step up here. And
yeah, it's interesting. Cause it's starting to get to the point where I don't know. And maybe this is a reflection of what was happening behind the scenes. I don't know what they're doing with his character. So like, it seems like maybe they don't really know what they were trying to do with his character either.
Right. And I think it was because they kind of shoehorned him into that like boomer type of character. Like, oh yeah, we were out here in space and all that stuff before, a lot of Starfleet was. Well, that can only go so far, because the further they get out and explore new things, the less relevant that information becomes. And so his focus episodes are relegated to like his family or
Right.
his time as a boomer, and you kind of limit the character that way. And it's almost like a Harry Kim situation.
Yeah, it's weird because to me it feels like his character, like the position that his character was in, because of all the traveling that he did, he should have been almost a different kind of foil to Paul. Whereas to Paul is like, oh,
Right.
well, here's what's going on with these people, and this is what the Vulcans know about them, and this is our interactions, and this is how they are.
And he should have been like, hey, I know all about the Coordinates because
Right.
we delivered a shipment when I was 13 or whatever. And
had a completely different experience, and be like, look, this is what's going on with them. I don't know if landing here is such a good idea. And
right.
Like I feel like they had a lot of opportunities to use him in that kind of a way to give a different perspective than what she had as a Vulcan on all these different species that they were coming in contact with.
You know what? I never thought of it like that, but I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense because, yeah, they're going out, they're going farther than any other. But you know, he could have said, "Oh yeah, I dealt with Coordinate traders before. You know, their mentality is this." And yeah, they said back home there's this huge like civil war going on, and you know, I think we should do this. It makes sense, and it would have definitely given him something to do. I think Hoshi, like, answering the call, I think as much as I love her character, I think for this episode, like, give him something.
Yeah, because we just had an episode that focused on her. So
Exactly.
So I don't know. I don't know. That's I mean, but really that's really one of my only complaints about this episode is that we didn't really I don't even know if we saw Travis in this episode.
He was on the bridge, but like I said, like, she kind of took over for that.
Yeah. So I don't know. What about you? Did anything stand other than Travis? Did anything like stand out to you that like seemed off or that didn't really add up?
Well, the only thing that seemed off to me, and this was because this has happened in the past couple episodes. You know, we talked last episode about, you know, kind of they're all in the decon chamber and getting sexy and hot, and then you know you got T'Pol and Archer tied up together, and he's like, "Oh yeah, come my way," and and they fall, and like the boobs are in his face,
Yeah.
It's like, guys, what are you doing? Like, really? Like, we don't need that in Enterprise. And it was, that part was just, that whole scene was super awkward. And yeah, I have to think about them as actors, like being tied up for days to shoot this stuff. How uncomfortable and just crappy that must have been. And you can tell, I mean, it's good acting because they don't have to act much. They're miserable and being confined, and they were probably miserable on set.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't really think about that before, but that's it's one of those, that like that kind of thing is one of those things where, like, as an actor, like if someone told me, okay, well you're gonna fall into her boobs, you know, on the one hand, well, as a regular guy, I'd be like, cool, but at the same time, I'd be like, is this necessary? Like, so, like what does this actually add to the scene?
So Memory Alpha has an actual trivia about that scene. So according to the stunt coordinator, Vince Dedrick Jr., he said, the next morning we were supposed to start with the sequence where, you know, he falls into her breasts or whatever, with them on top of each other back in position. And the sound department put on the song Love Shack really loud over the speakers. It was a great way to break the ice for the morning. Everybody got a big laugh out of it. It was perfect. And that was from the Star Trek Communicator magazine, issue 138.
That's funny.
Yeah.
you know, and those those are the moments that I love being on set for. Is just like the things that have, because typically, you know, you'll get random bloopers and you know like a couple of different takes of things when if people screw up their lines and they're having fun. But at the end of the day, it's a job, and you most of the time people are really professional about it. and just go and go on and do their own things. But just those moments where something unexpected happens and you get to see how everyone reacts to it, it's just fun. And like now, like I said before, I've been back in the office shooting the show that I'm on remotely. Mm-hmm. So like I'm just sitting in front of like Zoom calls with like 15 different people on it. Right. But like those things don't happen because everyone is isolated in their own home. It's a much different experience than that is. So I don't know. I like this feels like an episode that they're a solid episode, but not like a super interesting one to discuss because like everything was kind of straightforward. There wasn't a whole lot of background stuff going on outside of what was happening with the Andorians, with Shran and Archer, but that pretty much got resolved fairly quickly. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, I know. I mean, I'm unabashedly a fan of the Andorians, and when this first aired, Shadows of Pajem, I was on for that episode of the Riker Maneuver, and when I watched that for the first time, and they were bringing back Andorians, I was surprised. So when Shadows of Pajem came around, I'm like, oh my God, they're continuing that storyline. We got this character again. I was thrilled with it. And it, a lot of people dismiss Enterprise, first 2 seasons, but they set up so much groundwork, especially these early episodes of Enterprise. They set up so many things that are going to pay off in the future. And I really like the first season of Enterprise.
That's one of the things I'm really looking forward to because like, I watched the series maybe 15 years ago. Because I think it was right after the finale when I had started watching. I want to say 2000. I'm trying to think because
it ended in 2005.
Yeah, background information that isn't really pertinent but matters to the story that I'm about to tell. When it was airing, I had just graduated from college the first time, and I had gotten a job. Selling not selling, but I was working for like a business to business software developer.
Yeah.
Got laid off from there and took a job working at Time Warner Cable as a tech support guy.
Okay.
So this job was great because I mean it sucked because I was talking to people and trying to help them fix their cable, and a lot of people, old people and just people who are like,
where do I plug it in?
Well, is it on? And then you just hear like the TV start blasting in the background, and the phone hangs up because their cable box wasn't on. But one of the great perks about this job, outside of getting cable for free, was that at my desk I had a TV and I had a DVR and a cable box. Because in order to help people, I had like if someone called me up and was like, hey, I'm watching the Sci-Fi Channel and I'm getting weird lines on the screen. I had to be able to turn it on to know whether the weird lines were coming from their end or from our end.
Okay.
So I would sit there and I would watch because Sci-Fi Channel or BBC America, I don't remember which one it was now, they would show Enterprise in 4-hour blocks in the morning.
Yeah, that's BBC America used to do that all the time.
I know they did that. I remember they did that with Enterprise, but I don't, or with Next Generation, but I don't remember if they did that with Enterprise too. And that's how I watched Enterprise the first time was while I was working at Time Warner Cable. Just 4-hour blocks, 4 episodes a day, 5 days a week for I think it was like a month and a half before they actually wrapped it up. But no, so that would have been the towards the end of 2006.
Oh, okay. So you watched it fairly quickly after it ended.
Yeah. But nice. that was the last time that I watched it too. I've seen I've seen episodes here and there on TV, but that was the only time that I sat and watched the entire series. So I remember Shran. I remember the beginning of I think it was season 3 with the swath that was cut when they went
and the Expanse
and the Zindi and all that kind of I remember on a very broad level everything that happens on the show. but I don't remember specifics about a lot of it. A, because of how long ago it was that I watched it, and B, because of how I watched it. 20 episodes a week, but it just is all came together. And that's same for me with Game of Thrones. I watched the first two or three seasons of Game of Thrones. My roommates, I just moved out to LA, and my roommates were like, "Hey, we're gonna start watching Game of Thrones when it comes back this weekend. So you need to catch up." So like, all right. So over the course of like a week and a half or 2 weeks, I watched all like up to like season 3 of Game of Thrones, and like so those first 2 seasons just kind of like all blur together for me. I don't necessarily remember what happened at specific points in time.
Yeah, similar situation with me with Game of Thrones. I had ended up watching like the first couple seasons, binge it in like a weekend or span of like 4 days or so. And yeah, like, but if you ask me specific questions about those first 2 seasons, I'm going to blank on it because I haven't watched it in so long. And I think that's a problem with binging. I know a lot of people have been complaining about WandaVision and like, oh, why didn't they just, release it all at once or whatever?
Yeah.
But, I like the slower burn. I like the week to week show. And I'm so glad, like with Star Trek, I'm glad we got half a year of like Star Trek just every week an episode.
It's just like The Expanse is the same thing on Amazon.
Yep.
It's weekly, and like I'm like 3 or 4 episodes in. Like I know the finale just aired a couple of nights ago, but I just watched episode 4, I think. So I'm only like halfway in, but that's the type of show I can't binge it. Just because like the episodes are so dense and there's so much going on. And
there's a lot to unpack.
And WandaVision, I feel, is very similar, where it's like it's not really dense, but there's just a lot going on in the episodes. And if I had to watch, not that I have to watch it, but like if it all dropped at the same time and I was just watching episode, I think I'd miss a lot of the things that had happened in the previous episode, just because I'd be looking at just finding out how it's ending instead of what I just watched. Like after this most recent new episode, have you seen the new episode yet?
Oh, of course I have. Yeah.
So on Norm's computer monitor, the Commodore monitor, when Vision boots it up, there's a screen that's just like all binary code before it goes to the basic screen.
Right.
And so I spent like 2 hours last night on the going back and forth between different binary converters and calculators, trying to figure out what that was. And I got everything from just like lines of gibberish trying to convert it to like ASCII, because like I couldn't find anything that would convert it to what it would have been on a Commodore 64. Like I found I found a Commodore 64 emulator. So I installed that and then took the binary code and saved it as a Commodore 64 program and tried to run that. But I'm like, that's not machine code, so that's not going to work. It's just binary. It doesn't work the right way.
Yeah.
So like just hours on end trying to figure out what that was. Eventually, I was like, you know what? I've got a binary clock. I was like, this. So looking at it, it's like it was like 6 rows across and then a bunch of rows down. I was like,
right.
Let me convert this to an actual number. Converted it to a number, came out to 81. So I searched Marvel and 81, and it pulled up issue number 81 of the Avengers from 1963, which was an issue featuring Wanda and Vision.
Get out! That's nuts,
right?
That's awesome.
So like that kind of stuff. If I was binging it, I never would have done that, because it would I would have seen it. I would have been like, I wonder what that is. But then I would have been like 3 episodes later, and I would have just like not cared anymore.
Well, that's what I love about, even though it's streaming, to have that return to like a weekly television schedule. That's appointment TV. And I like the tradition of, hey, every Friday I get to watch a show, and then I go to YouTube where someone I watch that, has the Easter eggs, and they break everything down. And it's that kind of analysis that I appreciate. I take it all in, and by the next week, I'm like, oh, there's that anticipation that you don't get with binging.
Yeah, and what we've been doing is Friday nights. I finally have our Discord kind of set up.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten to the point yet where we're inviting outsiders in, but so right now it's
Sure.
just like a lot of the behind the scenes Illuminerdi people. But we all get into a group chat on Discord. We watch the episode, and then for like an hour and a half, 2 hours afterwards, we sit there and we just talk about it. And
Yeah.
with a show that you would binge, you wouldn't get that kind of thing because everyone would just want to sit there and watch every consecutive episode.
Yeah, and I just love that, we can have enough time to have these conversations. And, even this show, going week to week with Enterprise, and now, we're hitting the 19th anniversary of every episode that we're watching right now. It's just a great time because we can sit and have this conversation. And I'm coming from the perspective of I watched it when it originally aired and did a rewatch a couple years ago, and then you're like, hey, this is my second time really detailed through this. We can pick out things that we didn't notice when we first watch, and that's a great thing about all this.
Yeah. So getting back to the episode itself, what rating would you give this Shadows of Pajem?
I definitely thought that it felt like a step up from the last episode, and I'm not really comparing episode to episode, but aside from the awkwardness of T'Pol and Archer in this, I would give it a solid 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page. It like I was saying before, I don't think that this was like a standout episode.
Right.
But it was still a solid episode. I enjoyed seeing Jeffrey Combs back as Shran again.
Of course.
He's always one of my favorites to see on the screen.
I've got my Enterprise poster right there.
Oh, nice.
It's got Shran on it, so I like that.
Yeah, and but there's nothing necessarily inherently wrong with it either. It just didn't. It wasn't. It was a standard episode. It didn't do anything necessarily to step up the series, but it did enough to move the story forward.
Yeah, this was definitely like a season 1, like laying down the groundwork and, furthering those storylines, which have propagated. And I was just thrilled that, when I first watched it, that they were already following up with the consequences of something that they did before. And I was like, that's great. Like, Enterprise should be aware of, the effect that they have when they're going out.
Yeah. And I think we were talking about this last week where it kind of feels like it's definitely a mix between the standard like Alien of the Week type series and where Deep Space Nine ended up, where it was more of a through story throughout the seasons. And I like that because I like that's kind of thing you get with a lot of these shows like Supernatural show that I watched for the entire 15 years. When it started out, it was a Freak of the Week show, or Fringe. Right. Yeah, same thing, Freak of the Week show. But once season 3 or 4 rolls around, there's all this mythology that they had been building up in the background of all these episodes that are now coming like head on that are fleshing it out. So now when you get like these 2-parters or 3-parters or story arcs that cross episodes, it doesn't feel weird because all of the groundwork for that has already been laid down.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think that kind of wraps up our conversation on episode 14. But what do you have going on this week?
Next week, next Saturday, we'll be releasing a new episode of Ranger Command Power Hour. We'll be discussing all of the Dino Fury news that happened this week, and kind of our reactions to that. So I'm looking forward to recording that this week for sure.
I think this is going to be the first season of Power Rangers that I will be watching like from the beginning, since like Mighty Morphin.
Right. Right. Nice.
Because like I watched the trailer for it. I've been following everything that's been going on, and like this, it actually seems like it's going to be a fun season. Like I like what I saw of the Zords in the trailer. Like they actually look really cool to me. So
Yeah,
I'm
the
actually
Zords
pretty
look
excited
amazing.
for it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. How
yeah.
about you?
We're still trying to figure out what night to start playing Star Trek Online.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll be able to get going on that within the next couple of weeks. I know my roommate just downloaded it. I was talking with one of the guys in my office that we were gonna start doing that, and he was like, "Dude, let me know when you start doing it. I want it in." So I think we're gonna have a pretty good group.
Nice.
I don't know how many people you can have in a party. Like I'm not exactly even sure how like parties work in Star Trek Online.
I'm gonna have to brush up on the Star Trek Online because it's been a while since I played, and I play on the console version, so
Yeah.
I don't know how we need to team up or what needs to go on with that, but maybe I'll brush up on that.
Yeah. Well, we'll figure that out. Like maybe we can all do like our own like individual like character building videos where we build out our captains or whoever they're going to be before we come together. But yeah, other than that, we've got the Illuminati Wrestling Order tomorrow night at 8, where they'll be discussing whatever happened this week in wrestling. I honestly don't follow wrestling that much, so I'm not sure what's going on. I know last week I think was Royal Rumble, and then I know the regular Ranger wrap up will be returning at some point in the next week or two on a regular basis, talking about the new Dino Fury episodes.
Awesome.
But yeah, so with that, I guess we'll see you guys next week with episode 15.
All right. Live long and prosper.